Buddhism was founded by Siddhartha. Siddhartha was born in about 560 BC as a royal prince in what is now modern-day Nepal. He lived an early sheltered life of luxury and comfort. At the age of 29, he retired to the forest where he followed a spiritual life of meditation. He gave away all his possessions and sought to find the enlightenment through his lack of materialistic things. Siddhartha started his quest off with a period of starvation. He grew so thin he came close to death, and this is when he realized this was not the right way to bring about enlightenment. Siddhartha discovered he needed to find another way. He resolved to the middle path, a lifestyle between the rich and poor. Middle path means to investigate the core life and all things with an upright and unbiased attitude. It represents a distinct theory and practice not common in other religions. It avoids other attachments to two extremes. After 6 years of searching, Siddhartha finally found enlightenment after sitting under the Bodhi tree for 40 days. Siddhartha, the first Buddha, traveled spreading his knowledge and teachings of enlightenment. Small communities of monks and nuns sprung up along the roads that the Buddha traveled. Devoted to his teachings, they dressed in yellow robes and wandered the countryside to meditate quietly. For almost 200 years, these humble disciples were overshadowed by the dominant Hindu believers. But the rise of the great empire changed all that. In the 3rd century BC, several ambitious leaders built the expansion near an empire and fought many bloody battles to extend its boundaries of control. One king, named Ashoka, was so troubled by the effects of the conquest on humanity that he converted to Buddhism himself. Adopting a code of nonviolence, he renounced all warfare and incorporated principles of Buddhism in his practices. Ashoka promoted Buddhist expansion by sending monks to surrounding territories to share the teachings of the Buddha. A wave of conversion began, and Buddhism spread not only through India, but also international. Ceylon, Burma, Nepal, Tibet, Central Asia, China, and Japan are just some of the regions where the middle path was widely accepted. With great expansion of Buddhism, its traditional practices and philosophies became redefined and regionally distinct. Only a small minority practiced the earliest forms of Buddhism, and Buddhist influence as a whole began to fade within India. Some scholars believe that many Buddhist practices were simply absorbed by the tolerant Hindu faith. Today, there are approximately 350 million Buddhists in the world.
The first school is known as Theravada Buddhism, also called the Doctrine of the Elders. The main text used by this sect of Buddhism is the Pali Canon. This sect has about 100 million followers in countries including Cambodia, Thailand, and Burma, and it is also becoming more popular in Singapore, Vietnam, and parts of the Western world. This form of Buddhism is characterized by its orthodoxy, and they are considered to follow the closest teaching of the Buddha. The text they use, the Pali Canon, is the oldest surviving Buddhist text. They hold the beliefs that each individual can attain enlightenment by himself, and the best way to do this is by joining the monastic way of life, including actions such as practicing mindfulness, meditation, and chanting verses from the Pali Canon. Mahayana Buddhism, also called the Great Vehicle, is mostly popular in China, Japan, Korea, and Mongolia, and is also spread very widely throughout the Western world. Mahayana Buddhism promotes liberation of suffering for all beings. Where Theravada focuses on individual enlightenment, Mahayana preaches that Buddhas are to help us attain collective illumination. Thus, they believe in supernatural Buddhas who devote themselves to the perfections, ultimate knowledge, and the liberation of all beings. The Buddha is seen as the ultimate highest being, present in all times, in all beings, and in all places, and they represent the universal ideal of excellence. Vajrayana Buddhism, also known as the Diamond Way, is about the mind itself. This sect of Buddhism focuses on the idea that only one can perceive perfection outside because they have the same innate perfection inside. In Vajrayana, the Buddha is not considered a person. Instead, he is viewed as a mirror to our own mind. The teachings of this sect point out the mind's perfect qualities. They are often known as the Buddhist Tantra. The Vajrayana also includes the Theravada and Mahayana teachings.
Buddhism has many symbols to their religion. The parasol, or umbrella, protects people from different elements. So that would be like the elements of envy, greed, jealousy, and things like that, which is not good for Buddhist people. The 2 golden fish symbolize the flowing of the Ganges and Yamuna rivers. These are the 2 most important rivers in the Buddhist religion, And that's why this is such an important symbol. The conch shell, which means deep and joyful sound of the Buddha's teachings, this is supposed to symbolize the beauty of what the Buddha is saying in his teachings, and that's why it's very important to these people and to their faith. The lotus is a very unique symbol, and it shows that even though we may come from different things, we can rise up and be the best. The lotus flower is a great symbol of that, because the lotus flower is grown in probably the worst habitats to grow in that you can think of, but it grows into this beautiful thing, and that's the symbolism of the lotus. The banner of victory is a symbol that shows how Buddha won over the devil Mara, and that's very important because that was the turning point of the religion. That really started the whole Buddhist faith and philosophy. The vase shows the showering of goods, which would be wealth, health, and prosperity, and that's very important for all Buddhist people to know about that symbol, because that is something that everybody has a gifts, and you put it in your vase, and then you can show your gifts off, and that's what the vase symbolizes. The Dharma wheel is the path of the eightfold path, and it shows the 8 different ways of to find Dharma, and there are 8 spokes, and it just shows that there are many ways, but it all makes up one wheel, and that's sort of what the Buddhist people believe in. The eternal knot shows that we are all connected as one as one. And that is important because people may come from poverty, people may be rich, people may be not really well off, but the eternal knot shows that all people are connected, and that it doesn't matter where you're from or who you come from, that you can still be great. And those are the symbols of Buddhism. Here's some interesting facts about Buddhism. The Bauddha Dharma Buddhism can be translated as the religion of the Buddha or the way of the Buddha. Buddhism was founded in the northeastern part of India, between India and Nepal. Buddhism is a non-theistic religion. This means that it's independent from the belief from God. It's more of a philosophy. Buddhism teaches that the middle way is the best path towards liberation. Neither too much or too little are good for spiritual advancement. The fig tree is revered in Buddhism because it was under a fig tree that Buddha got enlightened. The Buddha is one who is perfected and purified and has no more cravings and thus no more births. Full moon day is a sacred day, especially the Buddha Purnama, the birthday of Buddha, also the day of his enlightenment and death, nirvana. Visitors do not wear shoes inside the viharas. Candles and incense sticks are lit during worship, and they symbolize light, which is knowledge. Purpose of life of the Buddha is to attain liberation from the cycle of birth and death, which is the cause of suffering. Some interesting numbers about Buddhism. Buddhism was founded in the 6th century BC. It is the 4th largest religion by population behind Christianity, Islam, and Hinduism. There are 4 noble truths: suffering, origin of suffering, an end to suffering, and a way to end suffering. There are 6 realms or types of existence: Nakara beings, Preta, animals, human beings, Asuras, and Devas. There are 4 immeasurables, 4 virtues and practices for their attainment: loving, kindness, compassion, empathetic joy. There are 12 sources of suffering, and they are interdependent, and there are 5 precepts, which are the guidelines to be followed by a serious Buddhist. Those are the fun facts of Buddhism.